The galaxy had been quiet for a long time. 3,000 years of peace had made everyone forget what real war was like. The Interstellar Concord, a treaty between hundreds of alien races, had stopped the fighting. The oldest and most feared of them all, the humans, had stayed silent for centuries, keeping to their home in the Sol system. Many races believed they had grown weak, lost their old fire, and become too comfortable on their green planet. On the far side of the galaxy, the Zorthal Dominion watched and waited. They were one of the few species that still remembered the Great War, but their new generation only knew stories, tales that made the humans sound like legends, not monsters. To them, humans were just another arrogant species that had once been strong. The new Zorthal warlord, Vrax Kator, believed it was time to end the old truce. He wanted revenge for the ancient defeat his ancestors had suffered. He wanted glory, and he wanted to prove that the Dominion was still supreme. The meeting of the Zorthal High Council took place on their homeworld, Caldron Prime. The hall was vast, filled with flickering red lights and armored guards standing along the walls. Vrax Kator stood before the council, his dark scales gleaming under the light. His deep voice echoed through the chamber as he spoke. "For 3,000 years we have obeyed the humans' peace," he growled. "They hide behind their stars, pretending to be wise, pretending to forget what they did to us. But I say no more. The truce has chained our spirit long enough. It is time to strike." Several counselors shifted uneasily. The older ones remembered the last war. They remembered what happened to the Dominion's fleets, the way entire armadas vanished in moments when the humans unleashed their ancient weapons. But the younger members cheered. They were tired of waiting. They believed their new technology and vast fleets would make them unstoppable. One of the elders, his voice weak but calm, spoke up. "The humans, they are not what you think. They do not fight like others. They fight until nothing is left." Vrax laughed. "Then let them come. We will show them what 3,000 years of Zorthal strength has built. The truce is over." The vote passed. Every council member raised a hand, some in pride, some in fear. The Dominion fleet began to prepare. Far away near the edge of the Sol system, a small human exploration ship drifted through quiet space. The Odyssey had been on a long mission studying deep space anomalies. Its crew was relaxed, unaware that history was about to change. Captain Laura Kent sat in her command chair, sipping cold coffee. She had dark hair tied back and sharp eyes that always seemed to notice more than she said. Her second-in-command, Lieutenant Alex Monroe, checked the ship's readings. Everything was calm, then the console beeped, a strange encrypted signal. Monroe frowned and turned to the captain. "Ma'am, this code, it's old." "Really old? How old?" she asked. "From the war-era encryption set. It's a Terran Defense Command code." Laura took the tablet from his hands. As she entered her clearance, the message unfolded on the screen in a single, simple line of text. "Truce breached. Prepare for engagement." For a long moment she said nothing. Then she leaned back and let out a short laugh. "So it's finally happened," she murmured. Monroe blinked. "You're not surprised?" "Not really. You can only hold the galaxy's peace together for so long. Someone always gets bored." Within minutes, every ship in the fleet received the same message. On Earth, in orbit, and across the colonies, alarms began to sound for the first time in 3,000 years. Old defense systems activated. Hidden military satellites came online. But the reaction was not what the galaxy expected. No fear, no panic. Instead, across human networks, laughter echoed. Soldiers joked in chat lines. Admirals exchanged calm messages. Some even toasted with coffee and whiskey. Humanity had waited for this moment longer than anyone knew. On the lunar base, Admiral Jason Cole stood before the large observation window, looking down at the gray surface of the moon. His uniform was simple, his expression unreadable. A young officer rushed into the room breathless. "Sir, the Dominion has broken the truce. They've mobilized their fleets." Cole turned slowly. "So they finally decided," he said in a quiet voice. 3,000 years is a long time to forget why they feared us." The officer hesitated. "Sir, do we activate the deep archives?" Cole nodded. "Yes, bring everything online. Reactivate the ecosystems, and send a message to all fleet commanders. Phrase it simply, the children of Earth are awake again." Deep beneath the lunar surface, massive gates opened for the first time in ages. Ancient machines stirred, their cores glowing faintly as power returned. The old war AIs locked away after the truce began to boot up one by one. In the silence of the vaults, mechanical voices whispered old codes and battle patterns. On the Odyssey, Laura called her crew together. Daniel Brooks, the youngest officer aboard, looked nervous. He had joined the Space Corps for science, not war. "Captain, are we really going to fight?" he asked quietly. Laura looked at him with a half smile. "We don't start wars, Daniel, but we remember how to finish them." The ship received its orders, returned to Earth immediately for fleet coordination. As they turned toward home, the crew watched the stars stretch and fade. Somewhere out there, alien fleets were gathering. The Zorthal Dominion believed humanity would beg for peace, but they were wrong. Every human outpost began silent preparations. Factories on Mars reactivated. Shipyards over Europa started constructing new carriers. The asteroid mines shifted production to military alloys. In less than a week, hundreds of warships were ready. They were not the huge dreadnoughts of old wars. They were fast, invisible, and guided by human minds linked to machine intelligence. At the Sol Defense Command, Admiral Cole gathered his officers. The room was filled with calm, steady faces. "We will not strike first," he said. "But if they enter our system, we will remind them. Make sure the Council receives this message. We do not seek war, but we do not run from it." Meanwhile, on Caldron Prime, Warlord Vrax watched the live reports. His fleets were massive, thousands of ships armed with plasma cannons and shield arrays. His advisors promised easy victory. The humans, they said, would not even have half the firepower. He smiled, confident. "By the time we reach Earth, they will kneel." But one of his aides looked uneasy. "Sir, our scout fleets near the Sol border have gone dark. No transmissions. Technical problems," Vrax said sharply. "Or perhaps human tricks. Continue the advance." The aide hesitated, then nodded. But deep down he remembered the old stories, of fleets disappearing without trace, of laughter heard through comms before the final signal cut out. On the Odyssey, Daniel Brooks couldn't sleep. He walked through the ship's quiet corridors until he found himself near the observation deck. The stars outside seemed peaceful, as if the universe didn't care what was coming. Laura Kent joined him silently. "Can't sleep either?" she asked. He shook his head. "I've read about the old wars. The things humans did. Are they really true?" She looked out the window for a long time before answering. "Most of it. Some of it's even worse. But don't let that scare you. We fight when we must, not because we want to." Daniel nodded slowly. "Do you think they know what they started?" Laura smiled faintly. "No, but they will." Outside, the stars of the Sol system began to glow brighter. Hidden satellites turned toward the edge of space. Human defenses came alive, quiet but ready. A day later, the Odyssey reached Earth orbit. From space, the blue planet looked peaceful as ever, but in orbit it was alive with movement. Hundreds of ships filled the black sky. Drones moved between carriers, loading supplies and weapons. The surface cities glowed with energy as if the entire planet had awakened. Laura reported to command. Admiral Cole appeared on the holoscreen. "Captain Kent," he said with a small smile, "welcome home. I trust your crew is ready." "They're nervous but ready," she replied. "Good. The Dominion fleet will cross the border within 72 hours. Let them come. The Sol fleet will stand by. We'll teach them why peace lasted 3,000 years. The connection ended. Laura turned to her crew. "You heard him. This is not just another mission. This is history." Daniel felt his heart race. He was afraid, but beneath the fear something else stirred. Pride. Across the galaxy, alien news channels broadcast the declaration of war. Billions watched, expecting to see human panic. Instead, they saw calm faces, quiet smiles, and a message broadcast from Earth itself. To the Zorthal Dominion, and to all who would break the peace, we remember. In the alien capitals, confusion spread. Why were humans laughing? Why did they seem so certain? On Earth, as night fell over the continents, millions looked up at the stars. The truce was broken, but there was no despair. Humanity had not forgotten who they were. They had only been waiting. And now, after 3,000 years, they were ready to remind the galaxy. The galaxy held its breath as the news spread. The Zorthal Dominion had ended the ancient truce. For 3,000 years, peace had ruled the stars, but now, the shadow of war stretched again toward Earth. On every world, people whispered about the humans. Some races laughed, saying the old legends were lies. Others felt cold fear in their bones. They remembered stories told by their ancestors, stories of human ships that moved faster than thought, of weapons that sang like storms, and of soldiers who smiled before battle. On the moon, deep beneath the gray surface, Admiral Jason Cole stood in the command chamber. The walls were lined with old machines, silent, massive, and waiting. He watched the screens as reports came in from every corner of human space. The outer colonies were secure. The fleet was awake. An officer beside him spoke carefully. "Sir, the Zorthal have gathered more than 8,000 warships. Their flagship fleet is moving toward the Sol border." Cole nodded, calm as ever. "Let them come closer. We'll respond when we must." Another officer frowned. "But sir, their numbers—" Cole turned his cold gray eyes toward him. "Numbers don't win wars. Preparation does, and we've been preparing for 3,000 years." With a few quiet words, he gave his orders. The room came alive with motion. Screens lit up, data streams flowed, and deep systems that had slept for millennia began to hum. Under the moon's surface, long tunnels led to enormous hangars. Inside them rested ships unlike any others in the galaxy. Sleek, dark, and silent. Their hulls shimmered with adaptive armor. They didn't need light. They could hide from sensors, vanish from scanners, and move faster than any radar pulse could track. Each ship carried artificial minds, linked to their human commanders through neural bonds. These were the ghost ships, part of a project long forgotten by the galaxy, the Echo Fleet. Far above Mars, the Odyssey was docked at the Terran Assembly Station. The crew had just returned from their exploration mission, and were now watching as the shipyards came alive. Giant cranes swung massive hull plates into place. Sparks from fusion welders filled the void like falling stars. Daniel Brooks stood near the observation window, his hands pressed against the glass. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. "It's like they've been waiting for this," he whispered. Lieutenant Alex Monroe smiled slightly beside him. "They have. Every shipyard, every base, every code, it was never really shut down. Just hidden." Daniel turned to him. "Hidden for 3,000 years? Of course. You think the old admirals ever trusted peace to last forever?" Monroe said. "They built systems that could wake up when needed. The rest of us just forgot about them." Daniel shook his head slowly. "I used to think war stories were exaggerations. Now I'm not so sure." A voice came from behind them. "They weren't exaggerations," Captain Laura Kent said as she entered the room. Her expression was serious but calm. "The old stories were the reason we had peace. Everyone else forgot that, but we didn't." Monroe turned to her. "Command has assigned us to lead the first contact fleet, Captain. We'll patrol near Jupiter's orbit." Laura nodded. "Good. We'll stay hidden until the Dominion makes its move. They'll think we're waiting. They'll never realize we're already there." In the outer colonies, humans prepared in silence. On Titan, engineers reactivated long-dormant reactors buried beneath the frozen surface. On Europa, under the thick ice, submarine drones tested torpedo systems designed for zero-lag combat. Even on Mercury, solar arrays were repurposed to power orbital defense cannons. Everywhere, the same calm words spread through the networks. "Stay ready. Stay quiet." But the aliens watching from afar didn't understand. To them, the humans looked unorganized. There were no grand military parades, no loud threats, no massive fleet movements. The Dominion spies reported that Earth's transmissions were filled with laughter, jokes, and simple calm messages. Vrax Kador, the Zorthal warlord, saw this as weakness. He stood in his grand war chamber, surrounded by shimmering star maps. His red eyes glowed with pride. "They mock us with their laughter," he said. "Let them laugh now. Soon their world will burn." His second-in-command, an older general named Wren, looked uneasy. "Warlord, I have studied the old records. The humans' technology was unpredictable. There are reports that entire fleets vanished without direct contact." Vrax waved his clawed hand dismissively. "Ancient fear. My scientists assure me those stories were lies meant to protect their legend. They're primitives hiding behind myths." Rien wanted to argue, but he stayed silent. He had seen something in the records, a single report that haunted him. It was a transmission fragment from the last war. Static, screaming, and then a sound unlike any other. Laughter, soft and human, just before silence. Back in the Sol system, Admiral Cole joined a secure holo meeting with Earth's leadership. The Terran Council chamber filled with faces, leaders from Earth, Luna, Mars, and the outer colonies. A counselor asked, "Admiral, what are your recommendations?" Cole spoke firmly. "We continue to appear peaceful. Let them believe their advantage. When they enter our system, we'll activate the counterstrike. But I warn you, once it starts, it will end quickly. A few counselors looked worried. We cannot risk the destruction of their homeworlds, one said. We should aim for surrender, not extermination. Cole's gaze was hard. We aim for survival. If they surrender, fine. If they don't, they'll see why the last war ended in silence. After the meeting ended, Cole stood alone in the dark room. He pressed a button on his wrist console, opening a secure link. A soft female voice answered. Echo Core online. Awaiting command. He smiled faintly. Wake them all. Across the moon, Mars, and deep orbit, hidden servers came alive. Quantum signals spread faster than light, activating dormant war AIs. Old names flickered on screens: Aegis, Phantom, Revenant, Ghostlight. These were not just machines, they were ancient digital minds once banned by law. Now they stirred again, remembering every battle, every victory. On the Odyssey, Laura Kent sat in the command chair, watching her crew as they prepared for launch. Daniel Brooks worked at the sensor station, scanning deep space. He turned suddenly. Captain, we've picked up something. Small energy signatures near the asteroid belt. Could be probes. Laura leaned forward. Alien scouts? Maybe, they're trying to stay hidden. Activate passive tracking, she ordered. Don't alert them. Let's see what they're doing. Hours passed as the crew watched the tiny signals move closer. Then, without warning, the signals blinked out one by one. Daniel looked at the data, confused. They just vanished. Monroe raised an eyebrow. Vanished how? Cloaking? No, Daniel said slowly. They're just gone. Laura smiled faintly. The defense grid must be awake. Monroe frowned. You mean... She nodded. Yes, the ecosystems are active again. Anything that enters our borders without clearance doesn't leave. The crew fell silent. For the first time, Daniel understood why Admiral Cole had said the aliens would remember soon. Days later, the Dominion fleet crossed the border into human space. 8,000 ships filled the void like a moving storm. The alien commanders expected a fierce resistance. They found only silence. No human fleets, no transmissions, no warnings. They moved closer, scanning every asteroid, every signal. But their scanners showed nothing unusual. The fleet continued deeper into the Sol system. Then one of their ships vanished. No explosion, no trace, just gone. Moments later, 3 more disappeared. Panic spread through the alien ranks. What's happening? Shouted one commander. Where are the signals? Unknown interference. Another replied. We can't detect what's attacking us. From the bridge of his flagship, Vrax Kaitor watched in fury as the icons of his fleet began to fade one after another. Find them, he roared. Find the humans. But there was nothing to find. Only darkness, and then a voice, calm, clear, and human, echoed through every alien channel. You wanted war. You found it. The message ended with a short laugh. Back on Earth, Admiral Cole stood before a large screen showing live tactical data. Small red dots representing enemy ships were blinking out one by one. He turned to his officers. They've reached the asteroid belt. The ghosts are doing their job. A young officer smiled. Sir, should we bring the main fleet online? Not yet, Cole said. Let them realize what they've started. Then we'll answer properly. On the Odyssey, Daniel Brooks stared at the displays. Captain, he said quietly, the Dominion doesn't know what's happening. Their ships are vanishing faster every hour. Laura nodded slowly. They'll understand soon enough. Monroe looked at her. You almost sound sorry for them, Laura sighed. They could have lived in peace. We gave them 3,000 years to forget fear. Now we'll remind them. Outside, the stars shimmered as human stealth ships moved silently across the void. They were invisible to sensors, connected by thought and bound by one purpose, to protect Earth. The laughter that had spread across human networks now filled the deep of space. It wasn't cruel laughter. It was something else, an old truth whispered in the dark. Humanity hadn't been sleeping. They had been waiting. And now, as the Dominion advanced deeper into Sol, that waiting was over.